And welcome back to the Rigor Mortis podcast. My name is Adam, and again with me this week we've got Jason.
How are you today, Adam?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
Wonderful. Kids are back in school this week, so order's been restored to the world.
That's right. Watch out for those kids as you're driving to and from work.
Yes, absolutely.
So we've got a pretty interesting story this week. What are we doing?
I think today we're going to do the story of Todd Kohlhepp.
Now, this is one that I hadn't heard about until you had brought it to my attention.
Yeah, it kind of takes place over several years, but came back in the news just within the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, cool. So this should be a very interesting one for us.
Yeah, pretty recent.
So, Jason, why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about the early years of Todd Kohlhepp?
Well, Todd Kohlhepp is he's 48 years old now, but he's originally from Florida and grew up in Georgia and South Carolina.
He's a Southern boy.
Southern boy, true and true. His parents divorced when he was young, and his mother actually got custody of him and married a new man within just about a year.
She moves quick.
Very quick.
Kohlhepp had an unhealthy relationship with his stepfather, which unfortunately is fairly common.
It is very common, especially a young kid seeing his mother remarry so quickly.
Yeah. So that's tough for any child. He would often want to live with his biological father, whom he had not seen in 8 years.
Yeah, so maybe one of those situations where the mother's keeping him from the father.
That could be. Yeah, that could be. But that's obviously the story here. We're just getting right into it, and already a very sad one.
Right, absolutely. And as a child, he actually got in trouble in school a lot for destructive behavior, and actually also showed signs of animal cruelty at a young age. He actually had shot a dog in this neighborhood with a BB gun.
Wow, that's messed up. And I have been doing a lot of side research recently on serial killer profiles, and the cruelty to animals definitely comes up with a vast majority of them.
Yeah, it's part of the McDonald triad.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cruelty to animals, bedwetting, and I believe also fire setting.
That would be the trilogy. And he does show examples, a prime example of a textbook sociopath.
Yes, absolutely. And in his later childhood years, he actually spends 3.5 months in a psychiatric hospital because of his inability to get along with other children.
I wonder what that does to a child to be taken away from his family and be placed into a psychiatric facility.
Well, it's interesting because if he can't get along with other children, he probably already feels isolated. And then his family isolates him to a facility to try to help with this. I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me.
Do you think that for somebody that might already have tendencies towards being a murderer, that this might increase it instead of helping it in some cases?
I think it could. I also think some of this is semi-normal. I mean, when I was a kid, my parents were split, and I had a stepdad who had children of his own, and we were all around the same age, and I didn't get along with him at all, and I definitely didn't get along with his children, but it's because I was acting out probably to get my mother's attention and whatnot.
Sure, that makes sense. Now, eventually in 1983, Kohlhepp was sent to live with his biological father in Arizona. So he eventually does get what he wants. Now, during Kohlhepp's time with his father, he seemed to really be enjoying it. In fact, he was bonding with his father over the lost, 8 years or so of being separated, 8 years plus?
Yeah, and I think he actually inherited some of his father's hobbies, including collecting weapons, and his dad also was showing him how to blow things up.
Well, these are great games for a kid.
I can't say I'm innocent there.
Yeah, I know, me neither.
Boys will be boys.
That's right, and he certainly had the opportunity to, I guess, flourish as a young boy growing up here.
Finally having the relationship with his father that he had thought that he had always wanted.
Yes. Eventually, Todd's relationship with his father began to diminish, and this began what's believed to be due to Todd's father spending a lot of time with a number of different girlfriends.
Right. I mean, he didn't have a relationship with his son for 8+ years. I mean, he's probably used to living the bachelor life.
Oh, I'm sure. And a lot of guys that, even people I know in my personal life, they have a hard time single guys, they have a hard time to separate their time with their children.
Yes,
and their fun. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it seems like it's one of those kind of situations, right?
Right, and unfortunately, because of this, Todd actually decides that he wants to go back and live with his mother, which, it was already a toxic situation. He was in psychiatric facilities and whatnot, but eventually he does go back. But for a while, his mother's making excuses to not have him back.
Wow, that's weird, huh?
It is weird.
He desperately wanted away from his mother, and he finally gets with his father, and then he wants to go back. This guy's got nowhere to go.
I will say, though, coming from a family where I was an only child, bouncing back and forth between two parents, the minute one parent tells you no, you're just going to want to go with the other parent because hopefully they'll let you.
You think it's something like that?
I do. It's very, very common to play one parent off of the other in a situation like that.
Maybe his father was strict. Maybe more of a disciplinarian. I don't see his mother as being that much of one.
Right. I know when I was a kid, if my mom told me, sit down and do your homework right after school, and when I go to my dad's house, I get to watch TV for 6 hours before I do my homework. Guess whose place I liked a little bit more?
Of course. Well, the lack of structure and the lack of, I think, feeling like he has a home and a belonging eventually leads to the 15-year-old Todd Kohlhepp committing a crime at the age of 15.
Yeah, it was very serious. It was in 1986, and the end of the year, November. He actually kidnaps a 14-year-old girl in Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah, he threatened her with a .22 caliber revolver, brought her back to his home, and ties her up. He tapes her mouth shut and then sexually assaults her.
Wow, so this is a pretty serious jump in severity of his crimes at a very young age, only 15 years old.
I wonder if there is a lot of stress and frustration in his life, and that's we know that there is, and I wonder if this is what's caused him to lash out this way.
Right. I mean, certainly no excuse. A normal person doesn't act like that, but he does have some underlying psychiatric issues, of course.
Now, what's strange is afterwards, he walks her home. During this time, he threatened to kill her younger siblings if she were to tell anybody about what had happened.
Right, and that's common for rapists to say, well, if you tell anybody, then this, and it's not okay, but he actually does get charged with a crime. He gets charged with kidnapping, sexual assault, and committing a dangerous crime against children because she was only 14 years old.
Right. So in 1987, he pled guilty to the kidnapping charges, and the other charges were dropped. It was probably a plea deal.
Right. He was actually sentenced to 15 years in prison and had to register as a sex offender.
Now, according to court documents, Kohlhepp was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but he had an IQ of 118, which was considered above average.
Right, and many criminals actually seem to have very high IQs, which is interesting. Maybe they think they can get away with it.
They might have a high IQ, but they're never a smooth criminal.
No, never. And what's interesting is the judge in the case actually describes Todd Kohlhepp as a very smart guy and should actually be in advanced, college classes and things like that. But also that emotionally he's unstable and potentially dangerous.
It's crazy. This guy here, he's sentenced to 15 years, right? 15 years at the age of 15, 16 years old maybe at this point in his life. Could you imagine, because we're, in our early 30s, having, gone to prison at such a young age and being sentenced, and you're going to get out when you're 30 years old.
Right. And what's actually also interesting is that even though he did all this time, the judge actually says that he doesn't think that Kohlhepp can be rehabilitated.
So they don't believe he can be rehabilitated, but yet he only gets 15 years? Is that the maximum?
It's probably the maximum for that. Or like you said before, maybe the plea deal.
It sounds like you're playing with fire.
I agree, but in August of 2001, he's actually released from prison after serving 14 years.
He moves back to South Carolina, and I think this is to be closer to his mother.
Right. And, the good thing is while he was in jail, he had a few issues before he was 20 with violence and things like that, but over the rest of his prison sentence, he had no other records of disorderly conduct or anything like that, but he actually decided to attend college while in prison.
Yeah, and he graduated from Central Arizona College with a bachelor's degree in computer science.
Wow, that's a pretty good degree, I would think.
Kohlhepp's kind of ahead of the curve, because he's in prison at an early age, but as he's in prison, technology's developing, so it's almost like he had enough intelligence to say, I'm going to pursue a college degree in computers and maybe turn his life around.
Right, and at this point, it seems like he is turning his life around. He, made a terrible, terrible crime when he was young at just 15, but he's out early enough at age 30 that if he's rehabilitated, can hopefully be a productive member of society.
Now, from January of 2002 to November of 2003, he worked as a graphic designer for a company in Spartanburg, which is a larger city, I believe, in South Carolina.
Right, right. And also in 2003, he transferred to the University of South Carolina um, to get a degree in business administration.
Wow. So this guy, I mean, he seems like he's unstoppable now that he's out of prison.
Right, he seems like he's on the right path.
For sure. Despite being a registered sex offender, he was able to get a real estate license on June 30th of 2006.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I don't really know all the qualifications to be a real estate investor, but I thought that a felony or especially sexual assault might preclude you from that.
Well, sexual assault will not get you your license, but what he ends up doing is he ends up lying about it. So he kind of puts falsified information on his application, and these charges end up being overlooked.
Wow, so that's pretty criminal. What he actually ends up doing over time is he actually built his own firm and has a dozen agents of his own under his employment.
In fact, Todd's doing well. He's even recognized as being a top-selling agent in the Carolina region.
Wow. Well, this firm actually was open all these years until he actually ended up getting arrested.
Not again.
Again, we'll get to that.
Now, Kohlhepp also acquired a private pilot license. This guy can do anything, man. At least it seems that way.
I wonder how that works, because as a registered sex offender, I mean, I would think you'd have to notify people wherever he went. You usually leave the county if you're hopping in an airplane.
I don't think so. I think once they serve their time, they get out of prison, and they're on the list so that the community that they live in knows that they're there and that information's there. But he's not on probation. He's not under any kind of supervision by law enforcement or by any kind of law at all. So I think he's free to come and go for the most part. It's kind of how I think that works.
I'll take your word for it. But that's not the only thing that he ends up doing with his new riches from his company.
In May of 2014, he purchases a nearly 100-acre piece of land. This is located in the area 9 miles from Moore, South Carolina, for $305,000. He then sets a fence around the property, which cost him $80,000.
Holy smokes.
Now, I wonder where all this money comes from. I mean, because after his arrest...
Real estate can be quite a lucrative business.
Oh, geez, I guess the fuck so.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. He's got his private pilot license. He owns 100 acres of property now. That's a pretty good investment. And he also has his own business.
He's got a lot more than I'll ever have in my life.
Yeah.
And he's been locked up for the last 15 years.
Right. He sounds like he's doing really, really well for himself and is on the right path.
He's either doing really well or I'm doing really lousy.
Could be a mixture of both.
So, a customer of Kohlhepp's remembers him as being an extremely outgoing and professional person, which is something that you would see, which are traits that you would see in somebody who would be successful in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I have both done sales, and it takes a bullshitter to bullshit a bullshitter.
That's right, for sure, for sure. She also notes that he would often talk about his firearms. I guess I do too. And he would, at some points, even try to insert little sexual innuendos in their conversation. That is something I wouldn't do.
Right, and doing those innuendos at work is very unprofessional as well. And there was also another woman that was an assistant of Kohlhepp's who described him as angry and condescending towards some other employees.
Making everybody really comfortable at work.
Right, and it almost sounds like he's having a personality change.
What's going on in his life while he's kind of shifting his behavioral patterns right now?
That's a good question.
This?
I didn't see too much about his actual personal life. He just really seemed like he was mostly involved with his businesses.
For sure. Now, a banker who worked with Kohlhepp, I'm assuming with his business and stuff,
Right.
'cause it sounds to me like this banker was somebody that would visit him at the real estate company and such, had also stated that he had seen Kohlhepp often watching pornographic videos even at the office.
Is that weird?
I don't think so.
That seems normal, man. Yeah, Kohlhepp actually also frequented different restaurants in the area. He was actually a regular at a Waffle House, and his behavior there disturbed some of the waitresses as well. I mean, not right, but a lot of men feel the need to flirt with whatever waitress they see, and maybe he went, crossed the line with some of his innuendos.
So he's harassing women at work. He's harassing people at the Waffle House. And he seems like he's definitely on a downward pattern. I mean, he's watching pornographic material at work constantly. This guy is just doing reckless behavior everywhere.
Yeah, it almost sounds like he is kind of testing to see what he can get away with, how far he can push things. Um, and he actually pushes things a little too far in November of 2003.
Yes. Now, a customer found 4 people shot to death inside Superbike Motocross Sports. This is a place where they sell a number of recreational vehicles. They sell like dirt bikes. I want to say they sell jet skis,
Four-wheelers.
Four-wheelers. It's one of these kind of establishments.
Right, and a customer just shows up and finds 4 people dead inside the shop. I mean, nobody knows how or why this happened.
This is eerie. This is eerie because in my mind, what I'm picturing is like any other kind of vehicle dealership. I guess we can call them. There's certain types of vehicles. You know what I mean? I'm picturing pulling into a parking lot, driving past, like we said, motorcycles, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, boats, stuff like that's kind of what I'm seeing. Having a small little storefront, and as you walk in, you see the counter, the front desk, and all that. But there's no sounds of people moving around. There's no workers. This is a place where people would bring their toys, I guess you could say, to get repaired.
Yep, absolutely.
Stuff like that. So I'm seeing this eerie movie-like image.
Right, absolutely, I agree. And the victims were identified as Scott Ponder, who was the owner. He was 30 years old. Brian Lucas, 30 years old. Chris Sherbert was 26 years old. And the bookkeeper, Beverly Guy, who was actually Ponder's mother. They all died from multiple gunshot wounds, which, seems kind of random that those 4 people would be shot.
Yeah, and this is an interesting case because I want to say for the longest period of time they had no clues as to who would have done this.
Right, and before Kohlhepp confessed, which was in 2016, investigators thought that the gunman had entered the shop from the back and killed the mechanic as he worked. They thought maybe he was just a disgruntled customer, somebody who had been in there several times and maybe knew the layout of the building and things like that.
Yeah, that's definitely what I had read as well, was that they assumed it was somebody that was in and out of that store frequently, and that it was somebody that was very angry with the business, very angry with the business owner. This is kind of what they put together in the profile.
Right, and this was 2003, and they had no leads for several years, but that was their general profile of what the suspect might be. But according to Todd Kohlhepp's mother, he had actually attempted to return the motorcycle there, but the employees laughed at him and would not return the money that he had paid for the bike. So he was embarrassed about it because he didn't know how to ride the bike. He was frustrated they wouldn't return his money, and basically he fits the profile of what they thought. For some reason, he just wasn't on the radar.
I know, and he does have a criminal background, right? But he's still a very successful guy, and nobody really knows much about his inappropriate behavior in the community and as far as law enforcement.
Right.
And, as far as, the comments and the aggression that he's shown other people, because it hasn't led to any arrests since he's been released from prison.
Right, and like I said, this was 2003, and he goes several years not even on the police's radar, so he's staying out of trouble, or at least under the radar, and that continues until August of 2016.
Right. And this is where Kayla Brown and her boyfriend, Charles Carver, both in their early 30s, went missing after cleaning Kohlhepp's residence.
Okay, so from what I had read about this is basically they were on Facebook looking at like the Facebook marketplace or whatnot, and he was looking for not volunteers, but cheap labor under the table to have people come clean some of these properties that he's going to be selling for his real estate company.
Okay, so they were up for the task.
Right. I believe that they had some experience in a cleaning business and things like that.
But either way, after going to one of Kohlhepp's residents, this is when they don't resurface.
Right, and what's interesting is during the time that they're missing, there's actual Facebook messages and things like that being posted from Charles's account.
Really? So maybe the captor, we'll say we'll call the captor, could have been posting on his on Charles' social media.
Right, somebody trying to keep um, a line of communication. Of course, nobody can reach him by phone or anything.
Is it like one of these attempts, like, oh, everything's fine, I'm across country, don't bother me, don't look for me, don't call me,
Right,
that kind
right.
of stuff?
Just trying to throw people off the trail, I would guess. But this was in August. In November, on November 3rd, Kayla Brown was actually found by authorities chained to the wall inside of a metal storage container on that 100-acre property that Kohlhepp had purchased.
Now, what led them to this container?
They actually tracked her down after the authorities traced their last known cell phone signals, and they heard banging noises coming from the inside of a container on the property. So he wasn't there; it was just this, storage container, and they're hearing tap 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 tap, and as they were tapping, it was coming back. So they realized that somebody was in this container.
Oh my God! Could you imagine being law enforcement as you're pulling up to this here, and you're getting the pings from the cell phone, and you're getting close to where the victim is. You're expecting, I'm assuming, as law enforcement, always the worst case scenario.
Right. This is almost 3 months of being missing. So
you're expecting to find a dead Kayla in this, and luckily, what do they hear?
Get right up on it. Get right up on it. Yes. Pull that one first. All right, let them get ready. Y'all ready? Come on, guys. Back. It's jammed in here. Give me that crowbar back. Where's that? Pump it off. Get that big crowbar here. Right here. John, put it out here. Yeah, behind there you go.
Watch out. Y'all move. I got it. Watch out, boss.
Hey, Joey.
Sheriff's officer.
Sheriff's officer.
What?
Grab that
Back up there.
Just one. Are you okay?
Grab what? Go.
Do you have any weapons? Coming through, okay?
What's your name?
What's your name, man?
Lauren.
Okay.
All right.
Just a girl.
Just a girl. How are you, honey?
This is
bolt cutters. This is our investigator. He's a paramedic, sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get you out of there, okay?
Just hang loose for me.
Anybody got I need a handcuff key. Handcuff key. I got it right here.
Hold up. Y'all slide back.
Hold on. He's got a light. We gotta let him take photographs. Randy, let me see your light, Randy. You can put your hands down, sweetheart. You're okay. We're here, okay?
Yes, sir. Y'all sit back for me.
Light on or off?
Get fine. We'll get the rest of it here. Let's get her out of here.
We're getting bolt cutters, honey. Don't. You got pictures of the cuffs?
No, hold on.
Bolt cutters.
Is both feet?
Just one.
Let me
It's
see.
attached
Is it
to a
attached?
chain on the
Okay.
wall,
Okay.
and my neck's attached to the wall up here.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get you out, sweetheart. Okay.
You got a handcuff key.
I got mine's in my car. Mine's in my car. Gloves on when I did that.
No big deal.
Bolt cutter.
No big deal.
Just hit the chain right there, loose.
Hold it up.
Just right there at her hand, Brandon. We'll get it off.
We'll get it off here. Cut it right here.
Do you know where your buddy is?
Charlie,
Yes.
he shot him.
He shot him.
Who did?
Todd Kohlhepp shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor, locked me down here, and I never seen him again.
Okay.
He says he's dead and buried. He says there's several bodies dead and buried out here, and he says that the dogs will be ruined if they go looking because there's red pepper.
We're gonna step you out, sweet. Because there's what?
Red pepper.
Okay. Tell the dog people that.
He says
No,
there's pepper everywhere around the
This must have been incredibly encouraging for the authorities.
Right, and on top of finding Kayla in this container, on the rest of his property, they recovered Charles's vehicle, which was in a ravine covered in brush, so clearly hidden from the naked eye.
So they're able to put 2 and 2 together. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that killer in New Mexico in Elephant Butte, the toy box killer.
Yes, absolutely.
In a way, he had the storage container on the property. Seems like more money than anybody needs.
Well, it seems like killers with a sexual fetish, I guess, always seem to have like a captive victim as part of their MO.
Chambers where they hide them as well.
Right, right. But according to Kayla, when she was found by the police, she actually had witnessed Kohlhepp shooting Charles Carver, and Kohlhepp's mother claimed that he was killed for having a really smart mouth. So I'm guessing he was probably like trying to stick up for himself and Kayla, and being like, kiss my ass, we're not cleaning for you, or give us our money, or something like that. And Kohlhepp wasn't having it.
So out of anger from getting the sass, that's what caused him to lash out, you thinking?
That's what Kohlhepp's mother says. In my opinion, he probably had intentions on killing Charles.
I bet you it was all in the plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
He also said he kept Brown captive because she did not do anything wrong, and that he was not going to hurt her. This is a statement that he made. But I think, like you said, she was more of a prisoner, maybe more of a sex slave.
Right. And Kayla actually tells police in a video after she's released that Kohlhepp killed Carver because he was mad at her. So he must have been mad at Kayla for some reason, maybe not doing something, and she killed her boyfriend because of it.
But because she saw this, she was intimidated enough to not try to escape.
I can understand that. I mean,
That's terrifying.
you try to bide your time until he has a weak moment, but he's going to obviously be keeping an eye on you and knowing that you just witnessed this crime.
She had been shown the graves of Kohlhepp's other victims as well.
Other victims.
Yeah, well, that's what she's told. So imagine this, you're captured, you're scared, you don't know what's going on, and you're being told, look, this is what happens to people that don't follow suit with what my plan is.
Right, and from what I had read, he had actually told Kayla that he's killed over 100 people.
Yeah, and at this point, why would she doubt him? He's crazy enough to do what he's done to her and to her boyfriend.
He has 100-acre property. I mean, that's huge. He could have, different burial holes all over that property, and they'd be very hard to find.
Totally crazy.
Right, absolutely. And as the police are searching the property after they found Kayla, they discovered 2 bodies on November 6th and 7th. These bodies were later identified as Johnny Joe Coxey and Megan Lee Coxey, who are husband and wife. I believe Megan was actually a waitress at the Waffle House that he used to attend.
That's correct. One of the ones that he was making comments to.
Right. And Kohlhepp actually had hired them to come work on his property, so this is kind of like his MO now.
Yeah, and one that's obviously, if you're Kohlhepp, working for you really well, because he's been able to get away with a few crimes here, some big ones, really.
Right, and how this one differs from Kayla and Charles's situation is that he actually kills Megan a week before he kills Johnny. So he actually keeps the man alive for a week longer at this point.
That's totally weird. I wonder if she was giving him some sass.
That'd be my guess.
He murders her, and then... No, I wonder, what's he doing with him?
Maybe keeping him as a
sex slave also? I mean, it's possible, right? This
possible.
Guy is a full-blown whack-a-loon. He'll do anything, So, I mean, that wouldn't be that shocking, right?
Right. Or maybe he just hasn't decided what to do with him yet.
Yeah, very weird. According to the county coroners, they were identified through their extensive tattoos. So that tells me that they were probably fairly decomposed and...
Right, and I believe they both had died from gunshots as well.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy situation. So after they do rescue Kayla from the storage shed, they shortly thereafter arrest Todd at one of his other residences, and he quickly confessed to the shootings at the bike shop and the other people whose bodies are found on his property.
Wow, he knew he was nailed down, so he dropped his pants right away, probably because he knew from his previous experience that if he just kind of cooperates, he may get a plea deal. He's probably thinking that way. Although, what kind of a plea deal would this? Is this something that is South Carolina a death penalty state?
I believe it is.
So maybe he's just looking to get death off the penalty, and he's thinking that right away, and that's why he's.
Well, what's interesting is it's actually a lighter deal than that for police. Basically, in exchange for allowing him to talk to his mother and give her a photograph, and also to transfer a little bit of money into one of his friend's kids' bank accounts for college, he pretty much confesses to everything just for that.
Wow. So that's a simple deal. He's now. A lot of times it seems like these guys want to get caught.
Yeah, and he actually, while he's meeting with his mother, he confesses to the killings and the kidnapping. And when he confessed to the Chesney shootings, which was at the bike shop, he said he shot each one of the victims in the forehead, which is something that has never been released to the public. So
he had to have, because sometimes these guys get caught and they take responsibility for crimes that they didn't commit to kind of inflate their stats.
Right, and we've talked about in other episodes how sometimes the police will withhold certain details that only the killer would know.
And this is why they do that, because
Right.
when Kohlhepp comes out with this information, they know that without a doubt they can nail this guy down for this crime.
Right, whether he did it or not, he was there.
And now this brings closure to a 15-plus-year-old crime in the
Right.
South Carolina area.
Yep, absolutely. Also, when they searched his property, of course, they discovered numerous weapons, pistols, semi-automatic rifles, and tons and tons of ammunition.
Now, Todd must have acquired these weapons illegally, having a criminal record, especially a violent criminal record. He is not allowed to possess any firearms, so I don't know if he had a friend buying these for him, or somehow he must have gotten all of these weapons through some kind of black market trade.
Right, absolutely. And following his arrest, while he was speaking with his mother, he told her that there was many more victims than what they found. And when his mother asked how many, his response to her was, "You don't have enough fingers."
Wow, so that means a lot. During his interrogation, he claimed to have shot a victim in Arizona. Now, as a result of this, in 2016, the Tempe Police Department had begun to open an investigation into Kohlhepp's claims, searching through unsolved homicides in the past 3 decades.
Right, because we know he was in that area when he was 15. I'm not sure how long he might have been in there in Arizona after he'd gotten out of jail, though.
Now, they would focus on cases that dated from 1983 to 1986. So this would have been Kohlhepp's younger years, but I mean...
12 to 15, wow.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the dude, did rape a young lady at that age, a younger lady than him He was
Right.
15, she was 14. If he's capable of doing that, he's capable of doing a number of things.
Right, he may think he can get away with anything.
And they might be able to solve a cold case here, is the hope.
That's the hope, yeah. And also in 2016, in Greer, South Carolina, it was announced that they have named Todd Kohlhepp as an interest in a bank robbery in 2003 and a triple homicide at another bank.
Interesting. This guy is starting to sound more like a Pee Wee Gaskins type of guy.
Right, and this was all these shootings at the bank were also around the time as the motocross shootings were.
You can tell that this guy was definitely, he's a very unstable guy, but during that period of time, something had happened to even drive him further over the edge. Because it seemed like his worst crimes were during that period of time.
Right, and we see it all the time, though. He got out of jail. He seemed to be very successful, and a lot of times that can, hide some of the crimes you might be doing.
In December of 2017, Kohlhepp wrote to the Spartanburg Herald-Journal claiming that he had more victims who have not been discovered.
I believe him, but I will say that a lot of killers claim much higher numbers than they've actually done.
They all say that they've killed 100 people.
Yeah.
You always hear that number 100. I don't know why. But here's the thing, okay? Here's what I've got to throw into that mix. If he has killed many, many more people, who's looking for these people? They have family members. They've got friends. These are people that are members of communities.
But think about it. Look at the Green River Killer. He killed over 50 people, almost all in the same spot, and many of them were never searched for because they were, street workers or things like that.
I was just going to say they had to have been, street workers.
Transients, things like that.
Transients, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So after all of this investigation and whatnot, Kohlhepp is charged with 4 counts of murder for the motocross shootings, 1 count of kidnapping for Kayla, and he was also charged on 3 additional counts of murder for the murder of Charles Carver and the Coxies.
Now, this is along with additional counts for kidnapping and 3 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime. So they're hitting him with everything they can.
Wow, yes, absolutely. They don't want to risk any chance of him getting away with this.
It's interesting. A lot of times these very violent offenders, they somehow find a way out.
They do, or it could be a mistrial on a certain count, but you want to leave the other counts available to at least pin him on something.
They're making sure this doesn't happen. I wonder if they looked at the advisement of the previous judge from when he was 15 years old. The information that we had stated earlier about how he believed that there's no way that he could be rehabilitated. Now, I know of course, you're not coming out after these crimes at all. I mean, you kill one person, somehow you might find a way out, but all of the stuff that he's done stacked up, it's not going to happen. I think that they're trying to find a way to keep him in there no matter what, no chance of any escape.
Right, I agree. I mean, his initial court appearance was scheduled for January 19th of 2017, but Kohlhepp's attorney waived their right to an appearance during that trial. Relatives of the Chesney shootings at the Motocross Center filed a wrongful death suit against him, and also on December 1st, Kayla Brown filed a civil lawsuit against him.
The silver lining of this story is that she was able to get out, and her escape led to the capture of this guy.
Yeah, it's amazing how strong she was to make it through that.
Unreal. On May 26th of 2017, Kohlhepp pled guilty to 7 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of criminal sexual assault, and was sentenced to 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, and a plea bargain that spared him from capital punishment.
So yes, he did what he could to avoid the death penalty.
Always. Although his defense swore at his sentencing that there were no other victims to be found, Kohlhepp still repeatedly claims that there are more, and there were at least 2 more murders, is from what I understand.
Right, and he won't give the authorities any details on these, so he's more than likely just toying with them.
Now, it's funny because it seems to me like he has changed his number, because before all of this, before his sentencing in his court, he did tell his mother and others that there was a lot more.
Right, more than the fingers that they had.
And I think he's getting to more of a realistic number of, there's 2 more.
Well, he does say 2 more murders, but, look at the motocross murders where he killed 4 people.
That's true.
So, who knows if these were groups of people or just random one-person crimes. What
do you think, man? Could he have killed more people?
I think he definitely could have. I mean, he got away with several of these crimes for, long periods of time, and he seems to have an MO. He has plenty of land to do this, and, with his private pilot license, he could be here today, gone tomorrow.
And he certainly has the intelligence to pull these things off.
Unbelievable. It's it's really a blessing that they found him. Modern technology helped again with locating the cell phone signals.
I said it before in the podcast. I'll say it again. He reminds me of Pee Wee Gaskins, who was from I think he was from South Carolina also, and he had done, you name the crime, he's done it. And you could say the same thing for Kohlhepp. He's committed rape, he's committed theft, he's committed robbery, he's captured a prisoner. I mean, this guy is relentless.
He seems like he has a very short fuse as well. It doesn't take much to set him off.
No. And I am glad that he will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Absolutely, and definitely glad that, Kayla was able to make it out alive.
Absolutely.
Although her life will most likely never be the same.
I'm sure there's no recovering from that.
And we can all definitely take comfort in knowing that he'll never see the light of day again.
Yes. So I guess we can call this one case closed.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Hey, guys. We're not hard to find. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at The Rigor Mortis Podcast.
Yep, and also our email, therigormortispodcast@gmail.com.
I love the emails, guys. While I'm on my lunch break at work, this is something I look forward to reading. So please keep me entertained and keep our inbox full.
Yes, absolutely. Let us know if you love the show. Let us know what we can improve on. And, if you have any other suggestions for us, we'd love to hear those as well.
Yeah, we definitely love listener suggestions. Keep them coming in. We've gotten great feedback so far.
Absolutely. And we have our most important, probably, social media would be the Rigor Mortis Podcast Patreon page.
Yes, please take a look at our Patreon page. We're an independent podcast. We don't have a whole lot of money to do this. We're kind of doing it as a passion and a hobby that we want to pursue.
Absolutely, and every minute we're out here working on this is one more minute that our wives are getting upset with us. So.
Yeah, so please help us justify that to our wives, as well as help us to grow the show. This show is brought to you by people like you.
Absolutely, and all your donations just help us to make the show better and do more editing and be able to put more back into you.
And like we were saying, if we can justify this to our wives, then we can certainly justify putting out a couple more episodes a week.
Absolutely, and thank you guys always for listening.
Yes, goodbye.
The first 2 weeks I was there in the building, my ankles were cuffed, my hands were cuffed behind my back, and I had a chain around my neck.
What did Todd do while you were there?
We would get there between 1 and 3 o'clock every day, take me up to the main building, beat me, make me do whatever he wanted sexually, and then he'd put me back in the building. And then he would always come back between 5 and 7, take me back up to the building, beat me again. Most of the time, get whatever out of me he wanted sexually again. And I refused to do anything that he wanted. If I said no, he didn't force himself on me because he said he didn't believe in rape, but he made it very well known why I was there, and if I wasn't useful, that I wouldn't need to be kept any longer, and that he would shoot me.
Did he ever tell you how many people he's killed out there?
Story-wise, he told me about 4. He also told me that he walked into, a few years back, that he walked into a bike shop in Anderson and shot 4 people and left, and they never found out who did it. He liked to brag that he was a serial killer and a mass murderer. He said he was going to kill more people because he had dreams of his body count being in 3 digits. He said right now it was still high 2 digits. He said if I was a good girl, he'd teach me how to kill and I could be his partner. He said he used to kill people for the government. He said he was a paramilitary contractor, and that when he got home, he just couldn't keep from seeing the bad in everybody. He said he liked killing drug dealers and stuff, but that for some reason he just wanted me, and that Charlie was just had to go, so he didn't know I was serious.